How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. Today we're talking about Derek Jeter throwing some kind of gasoline on the fire, I guess you could say. Obviously, Juan Soto has been linked to the Yankees over many years, and Derek Jeter had a pretty interesting take out of the Padres' struggle after the All-Star break. Soto could be in the fold as a potential acquisition. The question is, how realistic is it? What would the Yankees have to take on? What would they have to give up? What would a big acquisition like this entail in terms of a contract extension? There's a lot of different variables that play into the entire Juan Soto sweepstakes. And as you know, the Padres gave up a lot to acquire him. They'd be trying to recoup some of that losses. And, they're kind of going through a tough time right now. There's a lot of rumors coming out, like the players don't mesh. They have financial issues. Like, what is going to happen with the San Diego Padres? We don't necessarily know. And Jeter thinks if they end up struggling over the next couple of weeks, who's to say that Juan Soto doesn't become available and they try to move him and get as many prospects as possible back in return. But Ryan, before we dive into this, the realistic nature of it, if there's any legs, what it would look like, how you do today, my friend?
Yeah, so first off, I'm doing all right. The All-Star game was definitely fun yesterday, and a lot of the All-Star festivities were great. But now we're wrapping up. We're heading back into getting back into regular season play. And, the next big thing is a trade deadline. Obviously, the draft passed as well. So, it's really the deadline. And then, you get the sprint to October. But Juan Soto, last year it felt like a pipe dream for him to get moved, and then he got moved, right? Is it going to be a repeat situation this year where it's like, there's no way Juan Soto gets traded, and then there's a little bit of buzz, there's a report that comes out here or there. Maybe, right? I'm not saying he's going to get traded. If you had me bet, I would bet on him not getting traded. But do the Yankees have what it takes to trade for Juan Soto? I think is the big thing here. It's not will the Yankees pursue Juan Soto if he's available. I think every team would pursue Juan Soto if he became available. But it's a matter of having what the Padres are looking for, having the best offer on the table, and being able to make a super aggressive offer. It's gonna. You can't even say, all right, well, it's the willingness to give up Anthony Volpe, because I think most people would say that willingness is high when it comes to Juan Soto. But they have Ha-Seong Kim, they have Xander Bogaerts, they obviously have Fernando Tatis Jr. Like, is shortstop the thing that the Padres are looking for? That automatically knocks out like guys like Peraza and Volpe for being centerpieces for that deal. You could argue that the Padres would just want as much good talent as possible, and that's a good argument to make. But they do have a lot of money attached to Bogaerts and Machado. It would be a little bit weird if they were to move off of one of those two to bring in Volpe, and they extended Cronenworth too. So they have a lot of money tied up to their infield. In the outfield, obviously that would be where the big hole lies, because you wouldn't have Juan Soto there anymore. I imagine Jason Dominguez would have to be the enticing guy there, but you would still have to throw in, just an absolute myriad of prospects, just an unbelievable haul. Like, I know people look at last year's haul for what the Padres gave up for Juan Soto and say, that's nothing. They did give up a top 5 prospect. You know what I mean? They gave up, they gave up a James Wood, right? They gave up a Mackenzie Gore, Mackenzie Gore is definitely a good pitcher. You have to give up good players. You have to give up, good players with a lot of control and are easy to project to get these type of talents. And do the Yankees necessarily have that? This is one of the oldest teams in baseball, right? Like, is Clark Schmidt going to be the equivalent to Mackenzie Gore? I don't think so. I think he's capable of being a part of that deal, but again, he has to be the equivalent. It's tough. Now, another year of league of team control being gone definitely lowers his price tag from where it was last year, but it's still Juan freaking Soto, right? Like, he has a 148 WRC plus. He's on pace for a near 6 WAR season. He's left-handed. He's 24 years old. It's a no-brainer for an extension. But as you mentioned, will the Yankees be willing to go the lengths they have to go in order to bring him back? Are they going to be willing to make a long-term commitment? We saw that they've already made one to Aaron Judge. They have a long-term commitment to Giancarlo Stanton. They have one to Garrett Cole. Are they going to be in the market for making another one, as soon as next year? I'm not sure. And the last thing you want to do is have him hit the open market and let teams like the Mets get in that bidding and drive up his price tag. And suddenly you're without Juan Soto and you're without your entire farm system. So, it's one of those things where you really want Juan Soto if he's available. You want the Yankees to be after that and involved in that. But you have to make sure, especially with those patches they put on the uniforms, man, you have to be spending money. These next 2 free agency classes, Shohei Ohtani and Juan Soto are free agents. I need the Yankees to open up the wallets. You're not going to ruin the Yankee uniforms and not pay guys. But end of the day, I think this is one of those, like, obvious Yankees to do this. But number 1, is he available? Number 2, do they have what it takes to get him? And number 3, are they going to put the best offer on the table? Those are all 3 variables that we can't control.
Right. Like you kind of said, this free agency, the next 2 free agencies have a lot of talent kind of tied to them. Juan Soto, obviously, is probably going to get closer to 50 million than 40 million. If, you're Aaron Judge, you get it at 30 years old and he's 24 in the middle of his prime. And, the guy's a freaking superstar. Like, he's a superstar. Like, objectively, people have been saying this year, Juan Soto's not having the best year a couple of weeks ago. The guy's hitting 265 with a 419 OBP. He walks more than he strikes out, guys. He's a 20% walk rate and a 21% walk rate and a 20% strikeout rate. The dude's a freaking monster. Like, there's no other way to put it. The guy's an absolute tank. And he would supplement not having Judge for a few months, if not a few weeks. And, Stanton's deal runs out in 2028. So you're paying Juan Soto 2025, 26, 27, while Stanton is still sitting there rotting on the roster. You know what I mean? Like, this is the Yankees tied themselves to Stanton for a very long time. And he is not even capable of performing at that financial level anymore. But maybe you can find ways to offload a little bit of money, right? Like, Donaldson's contract will be coming off the books next season. You have DJ LeMahieu. Maybe you ask the Padres, hey, you got to take DJ LeMahieu if we're going to get this done. He can be your utility guy. He's not getting that much money. Maybe we'll take a bad contract from you in exchange. Maybe you just do a contract swaps. Maybe one that doesn't extend as long as DJ's. But, the Yankees also is like, this Hal Steinbrenner, is he willing to drop $500 million on a single player right now? You know what I mean? Like, $50 million for Juan Soto. Is he willing to do that? Like, I don't know. Like, it was hard for him to justify Carlos Rodon. They got it done, at $28 million about, and, that's a really long-term deal. You're still paying Garrett Cole, Judge, you're still paying Stanton, and you're still paying Carlos Rodon in 2025 when Soto gets an extension. So, like, can the Yankees afford it? And the thing is, we don't have enough young players for it to make a lot of sense, because if you're going to trade away the farm, you need some of these young guys to be playing because they keep the costs down, right? Like, Anthony Volpe will keep the costs down at shortstop. Like, you need someone in the outfield. Like, if Everson Pereira doesn't get dealt in this prospective deal, which he probably would, like, Everson Pereira, like, is he going to take over an outfield spot? Is Trey Sweeney going to play third base? Is the pitching going to keep developing? Is Will Warren going to become a good pitcher? Our bullpen's fine. They're cheap and we're happy there. But this deal doesn't work unless the Yankees have a lot of young players. Like, does Austin Wells fill our catcher position for the foreseeable future? Is first base taken over by, I don't know, Andrea Chaparro? Like, throwing out names there because I don't know who else would play, post Anthony Rizzo. He's still on the books for another couple of years. So, I don't think this makes sense unless the Yankees are confident that their youth is going to step up and actually play significant roles in the future, because that way you can keep the cost down. Are you confident they can do that? Like, are you confident that the farm system can actually produce starting level talent where they can keep costs down elsewhere? So Juan Soto's contract doesn't look like a massive just problem where you're still trying to pay, players to win championships instead of just utilizing. You have to have a healthy blend of spending and developmental system and developmental players that are going to take over starting jobs. I feel like the Yankees have done a really shitty job at that over the last couple of years. We need to see more guys taking the step forward and actually contributing at the MLB level.
Yeah, so I 100% agree with your analysis in the sense that, the Yankees have really struggled to find guys internally to replace certain positions, right? You have to make a $50 million gamble for Josh Donaldson. I don't know if you have to, but they felt like they had to make a $50 million gamble on Josh Donaldson because they didn't have a third base option readily available internally that could compete for the job. At shortstop, obviously, we know that they finally found some semblance of a solution in Anthony Volpe, and I think he will be the solution. You hope Oswald Peraza factors in, but, what's his long-term future as a second baseman / third baseman in the league looking like? I'm not sure. They don't have a left fielder. Like I've said this, I've presented this question a myriad of ways. Out of all the position players on this team, how many of these guys do you want on this team in 3 years? Do you view as like core pieces of this team? And your shortstop's going to be, your right fielder is going to be. Do you know your first baseman is? Do you know your second baseman is? Your third baseman, your catcher, your left fielder, your center fielder, right? And I use the, dynasty teams as an example here. If it's the year 1998, in right field you have Paul O'Neill and Bernie Williams is going to be in center. Jeter's going to be at short. You're going to have Posada behind the dish, Pettit's in the rotation, Mariano's your closer, right? You have pieces that are there that are, part of that core. This team doesn't really have a core. There is no core here. The core doesn't exist right now. The core is non-existent. It's Aaron Judge, right? People can say the core is Stanton, Judge, and Torres, or like several, or like Cole. But am I really going to throw Stanton and Torres in there with Judge and Cole? Like, do those two guys really resemble franchise pieces right now? I don't believe so. End of the day, the Yankees, as you mentioned, a lot of the young talent needs to be able to come up and step up. Your Juan Soto tenure will be a disaster if half your roster's filled out with league minimum guys who are not good. This isn't the NBA. You can't have like KD and Booker and who's the other guy they got? They got Bradley Beal, in the Suns, and just throw a bunch of league minimum vets and kind of make it work. You can do that in the NBA. You can't really do that in baseball. You can't just win with like one really good player or two really good players. You have to have a really good roster. I mean, the Padres are a great example of this. The Padres have Tatis, they have Soto, they have Machado, they have Bogarts, they have they have Joe Musgrove, who's pretty good. You Darvish, right? Like, they have plenty of talent there, but they're not winning, right? You need to have good depth. You need to have a well-rounded roster. And the Yankees currently don't have that. And they're currently financially very inefficient. So will they get more financially efficient with Juan Soto? Who knows? I want Juan Soto. I don't think it's an argument against Juan Soto. It's more so like, can the Yankees take advantage of having Juan Soto on their team if they were to acquire him? I think that's more the question we're asking here. And I think it's a fair question to ask. You're trying to explore when we're talking about, okay, should the Yankees make a franchise altering decision? Everything has to be asked. Everything has to be put on the table. Everything has to be considered, even if it's like obvious stuff like, should the Yankees trade for Juan Soto? Yes, obviously. But like, how are the Yankees? What's the aftermath of that looking like? Let's say the package for Juan Soto is like, Dominguez, Hampton, Schmidt, Thorpe, Wells, Warren, right? That's like the basic offer, right? So you're throwing in a major league ready starter. You're throwing 5 really good prospects. One of them is your top prospect. Another one's your number 2 prospect. Warren, Thorpe, and Hampton are probably your 1, 2, and 3 pitching prospects. All of them go to San Diego. Who's next? Like, Pereira would have to take a big leap. You're banking a lot on Spencer Jones. You hope a guy like Richard Fitz comes up. You hope Clayton Beeter is able to develop. You hope you're able to continue developing pitchers in the farm system, right? I think that's something you'd have to do, and you'd have to be able to turn these guys to major league players for this to work. And I don't trust them to play the young guys right now. They've shown a track record of not doing so. But will that change with Juan Soto? Who knows? But definitely something to think about when you're making this type of decision.
Absolutely. But let's think about, what is this team if you do trade all those prospects? What does it look like, right? You got right field, you got Aaron Judge, or you have right now you have Harrison Bader in center field. You have Juan Soto in left or right, wherever you want to put him. In the infield, third base is a huge question mark. Like, who is going to be our third baseman in the future? Is it going to be Trey Sweeney? He's been pretty good in Double-A, but hasn't been promoted yet to Triple-A. Do they go out and sign like a cheap alternative? Does DJ LeMahieu just play there for the rest of his contract? You have Anthony Volpe. He's your number 1 guy right now in terms of cost efficiency. You have Gleyber Torres, who has 1 more year of arbitration. You could just keep him sit, or you could trade him in a prospective deal. You got Rizzo locked down for a couple seasons. Jose Trevino, very good defensive catcher. Leave him be. You don't have to touch the catcher position necessarily if you're going to move Wells in a prospective deal. So like, your team isn't bad. Like, healthy, they're good on paper. You still have Stanton DHing. Like, let's think about this batting order for a second, right? Like, Anthony Volpe leading off, Aaron Judge, Rizzo, Juan Soto, Stanton, or vice versa. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know how they would fit in all these sluggers. Just for shits and giggles, Ryan, how would you put the top 5 of our batting order, top 6, if they did have Juan Soto in the mix, let's say, and the team was fully healthy right now?
So I'd lead off Juan Soto. I know it's a hot take. I'm leading off Juan Soto. That dude can get on base, and putting that in front of Aaron Judge, like, you want to pitch to Juan Soto, but like, how do you pitch to Juan Soto? Because you want to pitch him because Judge is right behind him. So that's like, as a pitcher, what do you do? Then you face Aaron Judge. There's going to be a lot of runs scored just between the two of them. You probably go Rizzo, Stanton. I imagine your 5 hitters like Torres. I mean, that's who the 5 hitter is right now. I could be forgetting somebody. Bader's probably your 6 hitter. Volpe's probably your 7 hitter. I don't know who your third baseman is. You could say it's Donaldson or LeMahieu, but both these guys stink. No offense to them, but they're not third baseman for a World Series caliber team right now. Does Peraza come up? I don't know. But your third baseman's probably hitting eighth. Your catchers, Trevino or Higashioka. I would make a very strong case. This is not related to this at all. I'd make a very strong case that they should have Wortvet as the backup catcher to probably Trevino, because Trevino is the guy who's like the Garrett Cole likes Trevino, so there's that, and he'd only play against lefties, and he's really good against lefties. But that's neither here nor there. But that lineup, like, people can say, oh, well, it's like after like Judge, like it's not that good. After Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, like, it doesn't really matter what you do. Those guys are going to score enough runs. If the rest of the lineup gives you like a 100 WRC plus, that team is scoring a lot of runs, and they can pitch. So that team would obviously be like ridiculously good. They would immediately become World Series contenders. But again, it's as you mentioned, like, number one, can they make the trade? Like, do they have the best package? Like, can another team just step in and throw more top 100 at the Padres and be like, hey, well, we'll give you more? And number two, like, what does 2024 look like, or 2025 look like, or 2026 look like? Again, I know you don't want to think about that when you're trading for a superstar player, but you do have to think about it as an organization. So, like, can they replenish those guys? I think they can. They've done it before, but like, it's Juan Soto. He's more irreplaceable than any of these guys are. But they have to do it well, or else they're going to be like one of those, oh, they were so talented, how'd they not win a World Series teams?
Yeah, but like, at the end of the day, you're so talented, how'd you not win a World Series is better than we're not that talented, there's no way we're winning a World Series. You know what I mean? Like, that's where we're at right now. We're like, we're not that talented, like, we're not winning a World Series. But if you go get Juan Soto, you're that talented, why didn't you win a World Series? Like, or you're that talented, that's why you won the World Series. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big narrative shift, going from, there's no freaking way to, okay, like, there's a good chance. Juan Soto changes everything. You talk about a World Series caliber player. The Yankees aren't getting Cody Bellinger and making this a World Series caliber team, guys. Like, start to burst your bubble. Cody Bellinger's not winning a World Series for the Yankees. He's not good enough. He is really inconsistent. He's really flip-floppy. He's a polarizing player. He's a good dude. Like, I think he's a good player, but you can't rely on him to be consistent throughout a whole season. Juan Soto was consistently a freaking tank. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to show the hell up whenever you call upon him. And that's what that's what you get. That's what you're getting in Juan Soto, a guy that will win you a championship, a guy that will come up in a big moment and launch a 450-foot blast to right field in Yankee Stadium, energize the fan base, energize the team. That's what you're getting in Juan Soto. You can't say the same about anyone else. This team would go get maybe Nolan Arenado to go play third base. Maybe there's a chance there, but like, he's not Juan Soto either, and he's 34 or 32 years old. So, you're talking about a 24-year-old to a 32-year-old. Big damn difference. Nolan Arenado will eventually see a massive drop-off. Juan Soto is 6 years away from even thinking about a drop-off. So I think that right now, if the Yankees really want to win a championship, they got to make a championship move. But if they don't want to do that, they're just going to be hoping for the best, hoping this team pieces it together, hoping for a miracle, because this team is not ready to win a championship, my friends. I don't care about firing Dylan Lawson or Sean Casey. I'm hoping for the best, as everyone is. But the truth is like, what can we really expect from this team right now? And Cody Bellinger isn't making us win a championship anytime soon. That's just a move to save face. Bellinger's a move to save face. Anyone else, Tyler O'Neill, save face. There's so many guys that are just going to give you a little boost, but it's not the boost that we need to freaking overhaul this offense. You need a guy that's going to surge, that's going to carry, that's going to Aaron Judge this offense, essentially, without him. You add Aaron Judge back into the mix a couple months from now with Juan Soto already there, and you're winning games because he's carrying your offense. Yeah, you tell me. Having the reigning MVP and Soto on the same team, as a Yankee, the Yankees have a good organization. Like, they're ready. Like, in any blink of an eye, this team could flip the script entirely. Like, the Padres, like, we just don't know. Like, they're very polarizing. The players don't necessarily get along. They're going through financial issues. There's a lot of what ifs. The Yankees are like, when? A lot of times. Like, when are they going to pick it up? When are they going to start hitting again? When are they going to do this? Juan Soto is that when. Ultimately, am I advocating for it? I'm saying that it would be awesome to get him, but how realistic is it? Probably less than 20%, maybe less than that, maybe less than 10%. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, Derek Jeter talking about it is pretty fun and cool to discuss, but always happy to hear your perspectives below in the comments section, and make sure to like and subscribe as always. Got a game coming up on Friday with Carlos Rodon on the mound, so we will be following up with you guys on any news that drops before then. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.